Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics. Very busy week in the state legislature. We're joined by Senator Bob Onder from St. Charles County. Welcome back, sir.
Oh, it's great to be back. Thanks, Scott.
A lot of things happening in the state, but I think one thing that's interesting, the state has to have a budget. That's what Republicans run on, is managing money well. Right. The Senate passed their budget this week. What is important about the Senate budget?
Yeah, as you know, Scott, the budget is the one thing that the Missouri Constitution requires that we do. And I think we passed a good budget, a budget that honors our commitments to elementary education. We restored the cuts in higher education that the governor suggested, so we funded higher education. With more money for transportation infrastructure, which our state badly needs, for law enforcement. We passed a budget that honors our commitments and at the same time is balanced without raising taxes. So I think we did really good work in the Senate this week. The budget now goes to conference. It always does between the House and the Senate. But I think we'll be sending a very good, balanced, fiscally sound budget to the governor's desk.
You've served in both chambers. You spent a term in the House. It is an interesting thing. The House takes the kind of the ball first and runs with it. Yeah. There doesn't seem to be that big of discrepancies between the two chambers' budgets, except maybe on K-12 education spending.
No, they're really, and even in K-12 education spending, it's not that different either. The House, quote, fully funded the foundation formula, but the Senate, on the other hand, funded more money for education transportation. And I think that is very important. For instance, I represent...
For rural school districts,
for rural school districts too, but even in districts like my own, half of my districts are hold harmless districts, which don't benefit at all from a little more money in the formula, but benefit a lot from the transportation money. So I think that was actually a positive about the Senate's budget, but it'll go to conference, and as you say, there's not that much difference.
In West Butler County, I rode the old yellow dog 45 minutes one way. That matters to kids, kids that grew up on gravel roads.
It really does.
It looks like it will be a radically different budget that you guys passed and what the governor suggested. But let's talk about that. There's been a lot of folks that have said the word values and beliefs and family values.
Right. That
when this scandal hit, it's easy to be for family values when a politician resigns or you don't have to actually stand up for something. You're one of the leading Christian conservatives in the state when I look at them. You've actually stepped up and said some things and questioned the governor's ability to lead.
Well, I think that's right, Scott. I really do believe the governor has to ask himself seriously whether he can effectively lead our state, whether this is the best thing for the state, and most importantly, I think, for his own family to continue to go through this. On the flip side, the governor is looking at an obviously politically motivated prosecutor, possibly some prosecutorial misconduct, but I really think he has to look at the situation in a sober, rational way and really question whether it's best that this continue.
There was an interesting part about that. I get to sit in the Senate and watch you guys a lot of times in Jefferson City. The feel of the chamber last year was combative against the governor, and part of that was to disrupt the Senate, which made leadership's job harder. This time it looks like you're in Senate leadership. It looks like not only has some of the folks that would normally disrupt things decided they were going to take it more soberly, but it looks like leadership, and particularly yourself, has decided with all the scandals and with all the shame and embarrassment coming to the state from the governor's office, the Senate looks like you guys have taken a much more somber, sober approach to governing this year.
Well, yeah, I think from the first days of the scandal breaking in January, we, on both sides of the building, Todd Richardson and Rob Vescovo and Elijah Haar in the House, and of course Ron Richard, Mike Keogh, and myself in the Senate, we said that, look, we're going to have to lead. We're going to have to work together. The public doesn't like the rancor. The public doesn't like the scandal. So we'll have to look for things where we can move the state forward in a positive direction. I mean, an example of that is that this week the Senate passed Senator Paul Whelan's health insurance reform bill. Senator Jill Shoup and Senator Shoup and I disagree on many things. We work together very closely on that bill to protect Missourians from some of the worst practices of a couple of health insurers, to protect Missouri patients who go to the emergency room thinking they have a serious or life-threatening health condition. protect them from having their claims arbitrarily denied by a health insurance bureaucrat, or worse yet, a computer algorithm. So we're looking for things like that to work together, and I think you know, and yet at the same time we've passed some legislation that might otherwise be challenging. Senator Keough's
it's easier to say leadership, right? But when you're in a crisis like this, being sober and actually leading is it's not easy, and I guess leadership is tough, or more people would do it, right?
Well, we have to be sober and we have to lead. We don't want chaos to take over. We don't want the entire Senate floor time to be consumed by, you know, by people pontificating about the governor's scandals. We have the public's business to do. Again, the budget being the most important issue, but we have a lot of other work we have to attend to. You know, yesterday we considered Senator Cunningham's bill to bring broadband to rural Missouri. These are important issues that we need to tackle, and I think we're going to continue to do the public's business until May 18th, when the session ends.
Let's talk about another situation. There's a paycheck protection bill.
Yes.
It basically talks about public employee unions, not guys swinging a hammer somewhere, but like if you work for the state, you have to agree to join the union every year, something to that effect. That bill, previously the Republican caucus has been divided over whether you put police and firefighters in there. This year, they're not in the bill. It looks like that's the kind of legislation that passes this year, maybe in this more sober environment.
Well, I hope so. You know, the Paycheck Protection Bill stands for the premise that before money gets withheld for union dues or for political purposes, that the public employee give their annual consent to that being withheld. Also, it brings the kind of transparency that we have with private sector unions, like the Teamsters and the Carpenters, to public sector unions, the so-called federal labor management reporting that allows union members to know where their dues money is going. Institutes workplace democracy. So that's the kind of bill, and sometimes you do have to make compromises to get legislation like that across the aisle. But I'm hopeful we can do that this year.
Let's talk about another a little bit broader issue. If you watch CNN or something, you'd think Donald Trump is the most unpopular guy ever. You have a district that includes part of the western portions of St. Charles County. In your district, in Wentzville, what's the president look like?
Well, you know, the president is still popular in my district. I think voters in my district are very happy with his Supreme Court nominee, Neil Gorsuch. They're very pleased with the tax cut, which workers are already seeing the results of that tax cut in their paycheck. We're seeing bonuses being paid out by employers all across the country, including in our state, and they're very happy with I think what is seen as a more firm, assertive foreign policy, as opposed to the weakness that a lot of folks perceived with Barack Obama. So, and probably most of all for our economy, just backing off on just the tidal wave of regulations for everything from Obamacare to the war on affordable energy that the Obama administration waged that really hurt Americans in the middle class.
You don't hear that a lot nationally, but I think in Missouri that's especially true, where the president is not popular in maybe the city of St. Louis, but even you get to St. Charles County, just a few miles away, he seems to be pretty popular.
No, I think he's popular in St. Charles County. I think he's popular in rural Missouri. I mean, for instance, think about the so-called Waters of the U.S. Treaty, where the Obama administration wanted to regulate every puddle and every ditch on every farm. So really, bringing some sanity back to the bureaucracy to economic regulation, I think has had big benefits in our economy, and it's really, we have an all-time good jobs picture right now since Trump took office.
Last question, probably one of the biggest drivers in November or August is going to be the right-to-work referendum.
Right.
You guys passed the right-to-work law, something you'd worked very hard on.
We did.
There was a ballot measure, took advantage of a provision in the referendum process to put it on the ballot, Prop A. The Republicans in the House have moved a measure to move that from November to August. Is that something the Senate's going to tackle?
Yeah, I think we probably will. I think the sooner we get that question resolved, the better. My son Joseph, who just turned 16, just got a job at a grocery store as a bagger. Well, it turns out he has to join the United Food and Commercial Workers Union in order to bag groceries for minimum wage, and he has to pay initiation fees of $150 to make minimum wage. His sister got a job at a non-union restaurant nearby. She's making more money and doesn't have to pay the union dues. I don't think anyone should be forced to join or pay dues to a union as a condition of employment. So I'm hopeful Missouri voters will do the right thing and make Missouri a right-to-work state.
But does the Senate have that vote in August or November?
You know, I think it'll probably be in August.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Senator, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. No, thanks for having me.
As this election season unfolds, hope you'll come back and talk about it with us.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. We'll be right back. The Opinion Maker panel next. David Barklage after this.
My name is Eric Philippi. I'm a veteran, a carpenter, and a father. When Eric Greitens said he was going to change politics as usual, folks like me didn't think the first thing he'd do as governor was take dead aim at our jobs and our families' livelihoods by working to repeal prevailing wage. Call Governor Greitens. Tell him to protect prevailing wage and to protect my family, not destroy it.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, the heart of Missouri.
At Ameren, Missouri, we know what light can do. It draws people together and chases monsters away. And if you shine it in the right direction, it will light the path for the next generation, showing them what their tomorrow could look like and spotlighting the possibilities that lay in front of them. Investing in our community by lighting the way forward. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics, our political opinion maker panel. Former Representative John Mayfield from Independence. Welcome back, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Mr. Bakker running for state representative in the city of St. Louis, correct?
That's right.
Good to have you on, sir.
Thank you.
Marsha Haefner, South County legislator. Welcome back to the show.
Good to be here.
David Barklage, Dean of the Republican Party. Elected more Republicans than I think, and let's start with you about electing another Republican, Josh Hawley. Look, when you really look at this situation, I think when history looks back on it, it's going to be an amazing time, and the one guy who ran right to it, did his job, criticized from both parties is Josh Hawley. Now you have Greitens and McCaskill whipsaw attacking him.
Well, you know, in politics, a lot of times it's when you're being attacked, it tells you you're doing something right. Mm-hmm. And I think in this case, Hawley is starting to really mature as Attorney General. He could have done
trial by fire.
Yes, he could have done a lot of things and put this off. He could have done a lot of things and put this situation into other people's hands, but he's hit it head on. So I think that from a standpoint of admiration of a guy who's trying to do what he was elected to do and doing the right thing, I think he's showing to do that he has that ethic. I think it's complicated, however, in a wave election with Claire clearly wanting to manage this in any way that's beneficial to her. But candidly, Greitens, that's the real story here, is that once again he's sort of shooting his own team members. Do
you think he ever thought of them as his team?
No, but I mean the point is that he could have handled the announcement by Hawley a lot different. Instead of criticizing Hawley, he could have said, "I understand he's doing his job. We disagree, and we'll work through this, and I'll be exonerated." But
John Mayfield, you know Chris Koster. I thought he should have been governor, frankly, and said it vocally. He was the Attorney General prior to Josh Hawley. I have to say, I don't know that I know any politician, including him, that would have had the courage to take the situation on like Josh Hawley has.
Well, this is definitely a tough situation for whoever the Attorney General is. Let's be honest. Josh Hawley did not want this, but it came to him. My only minor criticism would be, you know, maybe he could have done this a little sooner, but he's in a tough spot. He either divides the Republican Party or do what he thinks the right thing to do is. And it looks to me like now you're having to choose whether you're a Greitens Republican or a Hawley Republican. There's no other choice, and so it's a tough spot for him to be in.
You know, Scott, that's a pretty tough criticism because it's like it pulls people out of a burning bus, and you say, well, he should have gotten in there a little earlier.
Yeah.
Well, the fact is, 6 senators in June of 2017 said there should have been an investigation, including 4 Republicans. So there's been people out there.
Well, there was a courage caucus in the Senate that stood up earlier, but I mean, honestly, now you're seeing an interesting thing develop. Obviously, Claire McCaskill's running against Josh Hawley. She's going to attack him. Now you're seeing some of her supporters, Judge Wolf even now come out and say, well, maybe we should keep the Republican Party's great embarrassment, Eric Greitens, around a little bit longer.
Well, and I got to agree with John. I think anyone who had a lawyer with a passing knowledge of election law saw that getting a donor list from a nonprofit for your campaign a year ago, it's nice that Josh Hawley came to the party. And as for Judge Wolf, I hate to disagree with such an eminent jurist to some extent, but even though the defense and the politics are there, the underlying problem is that this is a man who's not fit to serve as our governor. And we need to see, you look at the language of the Constitution and what is impeachable, I think we're there. And I think most of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle are recognizing that we're there, and that's what we need to move forward with, which is, was encouraging that Todd Richardson came out and said, look, we've got the votes, it looks like, for a special session. So
I think it's an interesting thing. You have, now you have I think Democrats in the House have been pretty statesmanlike in not wanting to make this as too political, not wanting to dance on the Republicans' problems. But you have a judge in the city, and Judge Burleson. I think he's been pretty fair. He's given the defense a lot of room to make a lot of public statements, but they always say they're going to get the case dismissed, and then every time they don't. Now you see the governor out lobbying your members, and I always wondered when he was talking to John Weedman, is he like, well, I can do for your career what I've done for Ed Dowd's career? What's the argument?
I don't understand what's going on in the governor's mind going to individual representatives and trying to see where they're at with this. And I am grateful that Josh Hawley has taken somewhat of a lead on giving us a direction of where we need to go with the impeachment process. A lot of us are hesitant to say this is where we're going to go without some good background to back us up in this. And
I mean, with all due respect to Judge Wolf, I mean, he ran for the job that Jay Nixon won, which is the Attorney General's job. Jay Nixon later was governor and appointed the city judge. Josh Hawley, 6 million Missourians got together. All those that wanted to vote elected him the top lawyer. And he says this is impeachable conduct and you have to do the right thing. So looking forward, the second report, Michigan continues, stealing the donor list. David, is that what makes Republicans finally move?
I think so. I think it takes it out of the realm of a he said, she said to a more technical legal issue. Did he lie? What were the facts and circumstances? And I think a lot of people in this climate, the whole sexual connotation of the charges makes people uncomfortable, and some people feel very strong about that. But I think that when you add this other, it sort of brings the rest of the party in. It takes it to a very legal issue, and I think people are looking for some certainty. As much credibility behind the woman as there is, I think it takes it to a certainty that helps people. And you guys may have a more sophisticated view.
You've served in the House. The Democrat Party prides themselves on defending women and their rights. Yes. It looks like that they've handled this pretty soberly under the Representative Beatty, and I'm not sure what more they could do to try to give the Republicans time to address this. If, though, the second report comes out and impeachment doesn't begin, I think you may see a different tone from those House Democrats.
I think so, and I have to say, I think a lot of folks in this situation on both sides have handled this very soberly. And I think there have been a lot of statesmen on both sides in this issue, but I think that, yes, if things continue to progress the way they are and nothing happens, I think that you'll hear a lot of noise about moving forward with impeachment.
So sometime in the coming week, it appears as though the investigative committee will release their report on Michigan Continues. The governor said once he didn't take the list, said the second time he did. There's a lot of moving parts to this. If it comes out that he took the donor list, as the Attorney General believes, as I think this committee may find, the folks that look at the facts, is that where people say, okay, now we're not doing anything else until we address this situation?
Well, and that's the big question. This is sucking up all the oxygen in the room right now up in the Capitol, and it's unfortunately, pretty soon you may have to rename this show This Week in the Eric Greitens Saga if we keep on with this. But so hopefully we can talk about some of the issues, for good or for ill, what the Republicans are trying to move through the House and get perfected right now. But obviously they want to try and get as much through as possible, whether it's Governor Greitens who were to sign a bill or Governor Parson, unclear at this point, and then just do it in a special session. So there's obviously the goal is to delay to some extent, get what they can through, because I think with the politics of it, the people see a blue wave coming in November.
Is that the case, though? I mean, it looks to me like that there are some partisans that are, if you're the Republican, we have a red jersey on, we're for you. If you're a Democrat, the other way. But I think I've seen a lot of legislators look above all that, and this is probably the most sober vote you'll ever have to take. It looks like they're viewing this more in a statesman-like context.
It won't be an easy decision to move forward with impeachment, that's for sure. And I think that if another report comes out that has pretty definite proof that a crime has been committed and there's still a divide, then there's not going to be the silence within the Republicans that you're seeing right now. Because we are so divided, even right now, whether or not we should go to special session or not.
And Scott, I'd just say one thing. This report being released, I think it will be very impactful, but I don't think it's the end. I think there are more investigations, more issues that are going to continue to be adjudicated and continue to work through the system. So I don't think
we're
we're
going to like worried about Republicans, blue waves. I don't think this governor cares if there is a blue wave. I don't think he particularly would care if they all left.
He's not on the ballot.
Yeah, and I don't think that if he sees if Democrats pick up 20 House seats, I don't know that moves him at all to be concerned. I mean, he's shown no proof of that. Let's talk about Mark Richardson, though. Mark Richardson is the Cole County prosecutor. Very not political guy, very straightforward guy. I think most everyone in politics believed that the affidavit the governor filled out last February was incorrect and not truthful. He has a decision to make. What goes into that decision, there's a lot of pressure on him.
Yeah, and look, I think being the prosecuting attorney in Cole County, people don't understand that he is then sort of that first line on handling most of the sort of these political, legal matters.
And he's one of the least political prosecutors.
That's correct. And to have maintained that reputation as long as he's been in says something to his character. So I think he'll handle this correctly. I think he'll read the law, and if the governor has violated the law, I think he will enforce it to the fullest extent of the law. And I think you will see a prosecutor sort of, basically showing that no one is above the law if indeed the governor violated the law.
You're an attorney. This is a tough decision. I mean, you clearly probably the guy who broke the law, but I mean, the pressure is going to be huge on Mark Richardson to try to find a way out of this. Most prosecutors I know would. You're an attorney. You look at the law. You know his reputation. Most people in the state do. Do you think he finds a way to duck and hide, or does he deal with the situation?
I think he'll be under pressure without a doubt,
Sure.
And prosecutorial discretion, I mean, that's one of the big things you see in our system right now, whether something actually gets brought or not. I think given that this is becoming bipartisan, that everyone is concerned about our state, the shame that has been brought to our state by this entire situation, I think that gives him, even as a county prosecutor, the leverage to hopefully get in there and say, look, here's the law, and nobody in the state of Missouri should be above the law here.
Marsha, let's talk about a thing that is moving that actually matters to Missourians even on a different level, the budget. The budget moved through the Senate this week. Does it go to conference next week? And if this second report comes out, could that be timed around moving this budget through?
I think it's going to be a difficult decision as to what takes precedence because the budget is our constitutional duty as a legislature to pass the budget, and we're pretty far apart on some items, especially foundation formula, education.
The House does start that process. They have a very strong House budget chairman, Scott Fitzpatrick. When will conference meet? Will it be this week that you get the budget finalized?
It's my understanding we will start this week with conference.
David Barklage, once they get this done, isn't that the sign that, okay, we've got this done early, now it's time to move to the next thing?
I think they have to, yes, I do.
John, you know this process very well. They can do conference Monday, Tuesday, have the bills ready to be, the conference reports be third read. I tend to think that in this situation, there's some discrepancy on K-12. I think the statesmanship that you've seen out of both chambers probably kicks in, and these conference committees aren't that contentious, and they know they have to do the right thing because they know what's next.
I expect the conference committees to move pretty swiftly and get this off the table so they have time to deal with some possible other situations. Yes, I think it'll be very fast.
I mean, it is an interesting thing. Folks have been talking about this House report. Some folks thought maybe it was pretty close to being done this week. It would make sense, and it would be kind of in keeping with some of the other things that have happened if they do decide to, let's get the budget done. It would be early. They got it done. If they can get the budget done early, then maybe they move towards the impeachment that most folks in the Capitol see looming.
Yeah, and I think you'll see a lot of cooperation on that front. I get the sense, just from what I hear, that Obviously, Representative Barnes and Representative Minton have been working very closely together. They have handled that panel with incredible integrity in protecting both victims and the sensitive issues involved. So I think that cooperation will hopefully continue, and we can get a budget done, hopefully with K-12 funding fully funded.
Time for predictions. Budget done this week?
Yes.
Yes.
I believe so.
I think so too. Second report out this week.
Yes.
Hopefully.
I don't think there's a coincidence. I think second report comes this week about Michigan continues. What do you think?
I think maybe it'll be a Friday news dump or early next week.
I don't think it's a news dump. I think this comes out.
It comes out this week.
And in conjunction with the budget?
Yes.
That's kind of what I'm hearing too. If it does, will they have articles of impeachment come from this committee after that report?
I would say probably 60-40.
What do you think?
I think they very much will.
I hope so, but I hope people remember that crimes and criminal prosecution is a different path than impeachment.
Don't you think that's just Facebook fodder that the governor's paid staff is putting out? Do you think members really get confused?
I think the public's confused. One is not contingent upon the other. We have a different duty as a legislature with the impeachment process. It's very clear in the Constitution as opposed to what happens in criminal law.
David Barklage, with a minute left, who won the week?
I'm going to say the Mark Richardsons, the first Mark Richardson, father of Todd Richardson, that gave him a sense of decency and class to his son, the speaker, Todd Richardson, and Mark Richardson, the prosecutor, who has, through his reputation, I think, established that he's fair and impartial, and through that, I think what he does will speak volumes to where the impeachment investigation should go.
Who won the week?
Todd Richardson. He's remained patient and focused and is keeping us on task.
It's an honorable man to hold that office. Who won the week?
I'm going to say Claire McCaskill, who worked with veterans, and the fact John Hancock called her a lucky duck. If they say you're lucky, you're winning.
Who won the week?
Senator Jamila Nasheed keeping $1.5 million in needed after-school programs in the budget, holding the line on with her House colleagues.
I'm going to say Mike Haefner, a guy that people in Missouri Republican politics know. I think this week is going to show that if they would have listened to Mike Haefner a while back, they wouldn't have had to go through some of these problems. And a big announcement. Rachel Herndon, the executive producer of the show, editor of the Missouri Times, and I are writing a book. Be out just in time for the election. Go to scottfund.com and pre-order yours today. And until then, we'll see you next week on This Week in Missouri Politics. This Week in Missouri Politics, brought to you by Spire and Sterling Bank.